Black women are exhausted and they are on here crying and asking us why we did what we did. I want to give some insight to that. This is not a defense of anybody that voted for Trump or white women, but I'm hoping that Black women can feel a little bit more loved and encouraged after this, and for the people that look like me to understand the work that we should be doing. The statistic that keeps getting quoted is that 53% of white women voted for Harris. I dug deeper into that and found a few interesting things, but I first want to say something. When I made a video talking about how I was scared Harris would lose, the biggest pushback I got, if you go to my comments, was Black women say, no, like, girl, we got this. Like, the energy is so good here. We have it secured by this many votes. Things are good. And I was starting to panic. And I always say, listen to Black women. So I was like, all right, I'll recalibrate again, but I'm scared. But then I considered the places these women were telling me they were from. It was Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. And I thought to myself, oh, I forgot that listening to Black women also means understanding how to build community, which if you're a blue dot like me is impossible. And I realized that maybe a lot of these women that were saying that I was wrong and that they just knew and they told me to stay calm, it's because they had that energy around them. They could look at people that looked like them. They could look at people any day of the week that believed in the same things that they do. If you live here like I do, that does not exist, okay? And these red states play very, very dirty, all right? I never got my absentee ballot. The first time I went to early vote, the machines were down. And then finally, the third day, election day, I was able to. I'm going to show you these statistics, but one thing that makes me feel hopeful is that the 18 to 25-year-olds, at about a 61% rate, voted for Harris. That tells us that this new generation coming in is going to be better allied with us. And that's very exciting because right now, everybody between 14 and 18 or 14 and 17, we can target them. We start registering people to vote now. But the other thing about white women is as soon as they had any college education, it was majority Harris. If they were not married, it was majority Harris. And the older they got, oddly enough, they also voted Harris. These women also, once they got to the suburbs, started to lean Harris. And that tells me that these are women that are dependent on a man, that don't have educational prospects, that are likely unemployed or underemployed, with little to no opportunity. This is why they pushed the single childless cat lady rhetoric, because they know they're losing anybody that doesn't fit their narrative of what a woman's supposed to be. Overwhelmingly, I read this statistic. I'm not 100% sure if it's true, but it does match some of the statistics I'll show you. But women that are unemployed or stay-at-home moms are voting for Trump 80 to 90% of the time. What this tells me is they are married, they are poor, they are uneducated, and they rely on a man. The problem is the men, and we need to find some unity in that. I already told you that there isn't really an apparatus for the left to cheat with mail-in ballots. The apparatus used on the right is family. The men vote for their wives all the time, their daughters all of the time, or they toss their ballot or tell them they're going to vote for them. These white women that are supporting Trump are under the thumb of obnoxious white partners. Men treating women that way was true with Black men, Latino men, and every other demographic of men. Trump gained support in every single one of those demographics. The fact that there are Black men voting against Black women's interest is honestly even more scary to me because it shows how strong the patriarchy is. There were a lot of Puerto Rican men that heard that garbage statement and they still went and voted for Trump because in that moment they were identifying probably as a white man, but moreover, there was still a system in place if they vote for Trump where somebody is beneath them. That should scare all of us women. We need to look at these statistics and we all need to be in the same boat with each other. So I hope that Black women know that there are a lot of us that are trying really hard. We don't have a lot of power either. And that until we get our elections to be fair and safe, until we have automatic voter registration, and until we push back on the right, we'll never be able to show that. And I am still getting messages about people in South Dakota that showed up to vote and were just told they weren't registered. My brother is one of them, and it makes absolutely no sense. So even though we couldn't have possibly swayed the election, voting could have at least showed that a higher percentage of us were at least supporting Harris. We were trying to do the right thing. And I'm angry too at the white women that supported Trump. I have alienated myself from friends and family, and in many cases, that's a permanent choice. But at least now we know it's the men, it's a lack of education, and that there is hope in the next generation. So however we play into that, I don't know. But I don't want to give up, and I want you to know that I am so sorry that this has happened. And to the women that look like me, I know that there are thousands of you that live in districts like I do that knew their vote wasn't going to count, so you didn't vote or you did work elsewhere. In the future, in a race like this, even if you know your vote's not going to count, please vote so we don't have this statistic again. And for the rural, lower income, white community, I recommend this book. It talks about how the right has specifically targeted low income, lower opportunity rural areas, which is clearly where the problem is, to get them to vote against their own interests, and they do so on racial resentment. My book is a little torn up. It is not available on TikTok Shop. If anybody wants this book, the first person to give me their information, I will mail it to you. I did read the introduction to that on the sub side, but I do also have a video coming out because, as I've mentioned before, November and December is going to be very, very focused on racial resentment in the Midwest and what it's costing the country and how it's ruining lives.